welcome back to the show. This is your host, Hunter McWaters. It's good to be with you, as always. And this week, I got a chance to catch up with Cody Rich from the Rich Outdoors podcast. And he also has a company called Backcountry Fuel Box. He's a really interesting guy. He's an entrepreneur, and obviously he's in the hunting and outdoor space, but he's one of these type guys who's always, thinking about starting companies. He's started several successful companies. So really a mover and a shaker, and the kind of guy I like to talk to. He's based in Montana, and this time of year, a lot of people are kind of planning out their goals and dreams for the next year, and we talk a little bit about that and just about entrepreneurship in general. If it's in the hunting industry or in any industry, really, if you have a dream of launching out, starting something new, I think this is a great time to do that. And so that's something we talk about a lot in this episode, and just kind of swinging for the fences. So if you're one of those people who's kind of planning out your next year goals and whatnot, if you got a dream in mind of something you want to start, this is a great episode for you. So anyway, let's just jump in. I appreciate your support. Please continue sharing the podcast with friends and family. And I'll be coming back from Arizona soon, hopefully with some content to share with you guys. So I'm looking forward to letting you know how that went. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the episode. All right, so I'm here with my guest today, Cody Rich. How you doing, man?
Good. How about yourself?
Yeah, can't complain. It's a little rainy here, but I don't know, where are you based out of?
Bozeman.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's the weather out there?
It's snowing. Yeah.
Okay.
It's winter time. It's I think it was -3 this morning and snowing like crazy.
I don't even know what that's like, man. We got like a little flurry yesterday, but we don't get much snow. I'm in Virginia.
Did it snow there I saw it was like snow down south even.
Yeah.
Do you consider Virginia south or?
Yeah, I do. I'm like probably 45 minutes from the ocean front. So we are usually the last ones to get any snow. We got like a dusting here, but yeah, parts of Virginia got hit pretty good. So, but literally if we get like 2 inches here, the whole town shuts down.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I've spent quite a bit of time in North Carolina and all over Virginia, Mississippi, and I remember every time it would snow, it's like almost comical because it'd be like a half inch of snow and people like slid off the road, and I'm like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, people just completely forget how to drive when anything white falls from the sky. It's crazy. But yeah, man. I've been looking forward to talking to you. Did you guys have a good holiday?
Yeah, pretty low key. Just kind of stayed at home. We didn't travel much, so that was a total win for me. I feel like I've been traveling for years, so this year we're staying at home for the holidays. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
You got kids?
Yeah, I got a 2-year-old, and then I actually got one on the way. So
congrats.
Yeah, it's gonna be chaos this year.
You got a little boy or a little girl?
Little boy.
Okay, nice, man.
He's a hunting freak.
Oh, really? Already?
Yeah. It's like, and I don't even push it because I feel like I didn't want to be that dad that pushes their kid into hunting, but dude, he's full blown obsessed.
That's awesome, man. I don't know. My little girl, I feel like she might be a huntress or a hunter. I don't know however you say it, but my little boy, he likes it. I got him out in the deer, in a ground blind a couple times, but I don't know, something about my little girl's personality. She's just crazy. I think she'll be into it. Yeah, man. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just hear a little bit about your story, kind of tell folks who you are, what you're up to. I know you got a lot of different entrepreneurial things going on, and that's something I want to dig into a little bit, but go ahead and give people kind of your background a little bit, and a little bit about your journey and the Rich Outdoors and all that.
Yeah. I always say I'm just like a dumb farm kid that just wanted to go hunting a lot. So he got into entrepreneurship. So I grew up pretty small farm in a super, super small town in Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, we did a lot of wheat. We ended up switching to grass seed and, did like Christmas trees. And so we
Nice.
kind of did a lot of that stuff. And, it's kind of like forced, I wouldn't say forced, but pretty near forced to be a farmer. And I was like, did not want to do that. So kind of went down the rabbit hole, took a little stint. I thought I wanted to be a firefighter for a while because I was like, oh, they seem like they get to go hunting quite a bit, way more than farmers. So I'll do that. And and then I kind of came upon just like through the right mentors and relationships and stuff, just got kind of lucky and stumbled into entrepreneurship. And I just went all in, man. It was like, that's what I want to do. Like, I don't care how long it takes. Like, I want to be able to go hunting. And like everyone I knew who went hunting a lot was probably some kind of an entrepreneur, like they got to do the thing. So I always looked at them. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to be at. Like my family, like all the farmers I knew, like didn't get to go hunting. So I'm like, yep, that's out. So yeah, I mean, I just, I grew up just running around hunting animals, like setting traps, like just catching fish. That's all I did. So I didn't have a technical background much. And so kind of got into entrepreneurship and I was like, well, I got to figure out this whole internet thing because that seems to be like the next thing. So
yeah, good call.
So like forced myself to like figure out how to build websites and built my first company and yeah, it's been a long damn journey.
What was your first company?
So at the time, I was actually building it for a company I worked for and then ended up buying it from them, but it was an ammunition company. So, we were doing a lot of military training and that's when I was back east and in the South and stuff. And I had a really good mentor, a couple of really good mentors through that company. And we had this like little ammo company on the side. And, I read like the 4 Hour Work Week and I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I want to do. And so I was like, I'm going to put this internet company this ammo company on the internet, and that was like, I always say that was my MBA because I didn't really go to college. I just kind of figured it out that way. And I learned a lot. It was like that was my MBA, but I got paid to do it instead of like it costing me money. Yeah. Which can be more stressful than college, I'm sure. But so yeah, I built a little ammo company and then.
But learning in the real world is just so much more, just more real. I don't know.
Yeah. There's something about getting punched in the face that you remember a little bit more than like someone telling you about it.
Exactly.
So yeah, did that and then ended up wanting to transition and knew like I was like I want to be in the hunting space. I didn't really know what, but I was like I loved hunting, that's all I wanted to do. And so I was like I want to go down this rabbit hole. And so then I kind of started my podcast, which is The Rich Outdoors, and a lot of that was like I was listening to a bunch of entrepreneur podcasts and I was like I want to like someone needs to do this for the hunting industry, but I think it's a great way to like figure out what's next. Right. It was like, this will be like my foot in the door. And it was like, I honestly was so tired of just magazine articles. Like I was trying to get better as a hunter and it was like, you'd read like these, 500-word articles. You're like, that doesn't really help. Right. And so like, podcasts were such a huge influence on me in the entrepreneur space. Cause I was like, listening to these podcasts and I'd listen to books and listen to podcasts, but like, it was like books were like these in theory principle. And then you go listen to podcasts and dudes would be like talking about, the application of it. And so that's how I got my MBA, just loading ammo and listening to podcasts and books and stuff. And so then it was like, man, a podcast for the hunting space would be cool. Like, man, that's probably a good way to like figure out what's next. And so started that and it kind of took off and, that pivoted into my next company and, and then it just kind of snowballed from there, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So podcasts were a huge part of my journey in terms of like learning to backcountry hunt because I've hunted forever, but deer hunting out of a tree stand out east is a lot different from strapping on 7 days of camp and heading off into the wilderness in Alaska, which was my first backcountry hunt.
Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, it was life-changing for sure.
Just off into the deep end.
Yeah, my buddy invited me to go and I just said yes. I didn't really know exactly what I was getting myself into. Then I started to like figure out what we were actually doing and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to like really start preparing.
So I started diving in, and yeah, we did walk-in style caribou hunt, and it was like 7 days total, but life-changing.
That's awesome. Where'd you guys go?
We went to a controlled use area between, without getting too specific, between Chicken and Eagle.
Okay.
Do you know that area?
Yeah.
So
and the only reason I asked wasn't like to get your spot. It was because I went to the Haul Road this year,
nice.
and ended up being like a walk-in deal. And it was super fun. Like one of my favorite adventures I've been on in a long time, which, I did not foresee that. It was kind of like, oh, let's just go. It'll be fun. And it was just a super cool adventure. So
yeah, I want to hear about that a little bit. So we just like rented a U-Haul van and drove up there, and the area we were in, it's a controlled use area. So it's closed to any motor vehicles. Like you can't even bring a chainsaw in there. So anyway, it was an awesome experience. But so how was the Haul Road thing?
It was good, man. It was cool. I like the Haul Road is something that it's been on, I don't know, it's everyone's bucket list, but it's like one of those things that's always like out in the ether. Like, I got to do that someday. I got to do that someday.
Yeah.
You never really make time for it. And actually I had a flight booked out. So one of my best friends, he ended up getting a job up there being a pilot. And
nice.
Yeah, he's worked up there for a long time. He was doing game capture stuff. And anyway, he went and he's kind of slowing down in life. So he took a job for 40 Mile. And so working a deal to get
That's
in with
a good
them.
connection.
Right.
I'm on their mile-long waiting list right now.
Right. And that's good. Like best friends with one of the pilots, and I still don't get it. I get the buddy discount of like, yeah, you have to get in line with everyone else. I'm like, dude, come on.
Yeah. Seriously.
The only up I had is that I basically told the owner that I was going to be in his hangar sweeping the floor until I got a ride out. And that was kind of like, it was still like kind of up in the air, but I was like, well, I'll just be there. And I was going out solo, and they didn't really want to take me solo, but I was like, they know me, so it was fine. Yeah. But it was like, I had this flight, and anyway, we went to the Pope and Young show, and one of my really good buddies was there, and he just moved up to Alaska, which was kind of a last minute thing for him. He just like decided, screw it, I'm moving to Alaska to get my residency.
Nice.
Right. And so he's like, well, I'm going to go to the Haul Road this year because I'm not going to be a resident. I was like, man, I'll go with you. That sounds fun. Like, so I had a flight out. I was going to do, and I was pretty stoked about that, to do like a solo fly out caribou hunt. So I was like, man, that sounds really cool, but also hunting with Craig sounds cool. And I was like, him and I have been on some grinders. We've been on a lot of hunts together. So it was just one of those things where I was like, you know what? I'll do that. That sounds fun. I keep saying I'm going to do the Haul Road someday. It's just, like I said, it's one of those things. It's like, you kind of just always gotta, I gotta do it someday.
Yeah.
So I was stoked to get to do it. So that's kind of how it worked out. As you know, one of the only expenses to a caribou hunt is like the vehicle rental. Oh, yeah. Tax nothing. And pretty much, unless you're either going to fly out and spend $3,000-4,000 to fly out, or you're going to, spend that on a vehicle.
Yeah. Yes. Pretty much about the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we did a U-Haul. It was considerably cheaper, but I don't know if you'd want to take a U-Haul up the Haul Road. I'm not sure.
Dude, there was U-Hauls everywhere up there. So yeah. And it's funny because I laughed about the box trucks U-Hauls until I was like, you know what? That would be perfect. It's like a camper van, like just throw your sleeping bag in the back or a cot in the back. You just jam around all the time.
We had like a van that like a 15 passenger van, but like no seats, just like empty in the back. And it was actually really nice because it wasn't as big as a box truck, but we could get back there and, arrange gear and stuff. And you could store stuff without, like a pickup truck, it'd be open.
Right. No, that's a good way to go. So that's kind of how it worked out. My buddy ended up driving up, picked me up in Fairbanks, and we just grinded it out. And honestly, it was quite a grind. It was pretty tough hunt.
Did you do archery or rifle?
Yeah, we archery hunted. And it was funny because, we're both like, didn't really want to shoot one with the rifle. And he's like, do you want me to bring a rifle? And I was like, no, don't even bring one. Cause if you bring one, we're going to end up using it. Like we're going to end up hiking out 5 miles and using it. Like, let's just not bring one. And of course we don't bring one. And it gets down to like day 8 and we're like, yeah, probably should have brought a rifle. This is, kind of whatever. And so ironically, day 8, it's just a suck fest. And we ended up hiking way out because just next to the road wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up hiking clear. Well, we weren't going to go quite to the rifle zone, but like we'll hike out of 3 miles or so,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up seeing caribou over the line, which was like 5 miles out.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there on top of this mountain looking at this one caribou that's like 2.5 miles farther, and it's like, well, might as well try.
Yeah.
And so we ended up killing both of our caribou. 5 miles from the truck, which made it an adventure for sure.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
As you know, hiking in that country's.
Oh yeah, squishy and weird surface, and that's awesome, man. I'm planning to go back up there this year because we didn't tag out on our caribou trip, and I did Kodiak this year. And
did you?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Oh man, it was awesome. I filmed the whole thing, so I'm actually about to release the whole film. But we shot 3, and it was crazy. It was like I couldn't have written the script any better. Like the first full day, we had my friend with us who's like kind of a newer hunter, and we're like, let's get him one, get it on camera, like get things figured out. First full day worked out perfectly, got his, and then the weather was like crap for like 3 or 4 days. We saw like one buck like 2 miles away in like 4 days, and we're like, this is, we thought it was a wash. And then the last morning we doubled up. We shot 2 bucks within like 60 seconds of each other. I got the whole thing on camera, and mine's a nice one. My buddy's is like 100, I think it was 107-inch gross. Yeah, huge. Yeah, so we did August, which was really cool. We went up there, I think like the second week of August or something. I don't remember exactly. And flew in with Seahawk Air and hit a real high alpine lake, and it was beautiful up there. So the first one was in Velvet, and then our 2 bucks were hard-horned. But
oh wow,
it was really cool being up there that time of year, man. It was like Jurassic Park.
Yeah. So Craig, one of my hunting partners, the one I was up there with, he went to Kodiak in August, and he's like, man, it was so cool. It was awesome. And got his archery buck or whatever. And then he ended up going back November when the weather was like gnarly. So we're actually planning to go back. So I'll be doing Kodiak next year.
Okay.
So it's
like
ironic,
this coming August.
Yeah. So no, in November. So we're gonna go.
Yeah.
Late October, early November, sometime in there. So
is that going to be your first time up there?
To Kodiak, yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. I schedule a couple days on both ends for weather.
Yeah, we're going like 10 days. Like that's what we do. Like same thing with the caribou. I think we had like 12 or 14 days. I think it was like 12 or 13 days planned for the caribou. And like anytime you're archery hunting on those big adventures, like there's so much effort and logistics that you like just give yourself some extra days. Like it's totally worth it.
Especially in Alaska, because you might not be able to get where you're going for like 2 days or something.
Right. Or 5. You might get, weather, especially Kodiak. Like you could get weather for 5 days, and you only have a couple days to hunt. Yeah,
man. So that's awesome. Did you say are you doing a boat? Are you flying it? Would you guys figure that out yet, or?
I haven't figured it out yet. Craig did the boat thing, and it was funny because I had another buddy that did the boat and loved it. Craig did the boat, hated it. So we haven't worked out the details. He doesn't want to do boat, which I get because it kills the last hour of daylight. So I guess it just all depends on what you're looking for out of the hunt.
For sure.
If you're like going with buddies and you're like, oh, just the boat experience, I think they're just 2 different trips, and so it's like, you got to figure out what you want out of the trip. Like tent camping is going to suck. Like it's going to be miserable.
In November. Yeah.
Probably.
Unless you got like a wall tent and like a stove and all that, then it'd be fun. But since we were going in August, we didn't want to deal with the extra variable of like sea conditions. And I just like the idea of being out there and in it for like 6 days, not like going back and hiking back, because especially in August, I mean, they're way up. I mean, they're way up there. It would have been like it would have been several, probably 2,000-ish ascent and descent every day. So we decided to fly up, and it was awesome.
Yeah. No, yeah, it just depends on what hunt you want. But yeah, I think I imagine we'll probably tent camp, try to get some remote flying just, I would like to go and like hit some of these like I would like to take either, like a small jet or a small, little raft with a motor and try to get up some of these, drainages and stuff to get to remote stuff. But we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. So you mentioned you were trying to do a solo thing. Are you a big time solo guy or?
Yeah, like I think for most of my life, I've been a solo hunter, and
Okay.
it wasn't necessarily out of choice. It was always just like
Necessity.
mostly necessity. Like I was an entrepreneur, so I had a lot of time off, and like none of my buddies could ever, so they'd always be working. So it just ended up like I would go by myself. It just seemed easier.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started. But honestly, then I became a solo hunter just because it was like I really enjoyed having it all on myself and like all the decisions on me, not second guessing anything. I do feel like personally, like if I'm with someone, I tend to become the guide, or I tend to be like, they probably don't want to climb this 3,000 foot hill, like let's maybe not do that. And so it's just always been like, I'll just go by myself. I tend to make better decisions.
Yeah.
I think every once in a while you come across someone like my buddy Craig and I, we hunt really well together because we're always thinking the same thing. And I don't have any reservation about like going somewhere where he's not going to want to go. Generally speaking, it's actually worse because we'll go farther because no one's smart enough to say this is a bad idea. And then I can like, yeah, it's a great idea. So I think, it just depends. I don't know that there's like a best answer. Cause people have asked me like, oh, do you think you're more successful because you're solo? I mean, it just depends on the right person, right? Like if you met the right person or had the right hunting partner, I do think there's times where that's much better. There's probably times where I gave up, where if I had, someone who wasn't going to give up, if Craig would have been with me, then I probably would have stayed another day or two, or something like those. So there's a lot of variables there, but man, having the perfect hunting partner it's
tough.
I think it's crucial and it's tough. But it's
tough to find, but very important.
And it's like, it's just schedules and timelines and like all those things are hard to line up.
Yeah. So if you were going to do that caribou hunt again and you could pick, maybe not 40 mile, but if you had to pick like another air carrier versus driving up and doing haul road, which one would you do?
Man, I just don't know enough about.
Or would you do it again? Would you do the haul road again?
I'd do the haul road again for sure. It was a fun hunt.
Was it crazy up there? Lots of people, or was it not too bad?
There's a lot of people. I was telling Craig, like I equate it to like an Eastern Montana antelope hunt where like everyone's driving around and trying to road hunt, and like it can feel chaotic and like just like, oh, this is ridiculous, I don't enjoy it. But at the same time, nobody is like really doing any damage. So you get frustrated by the amount of people you're seeing, which is crazy when you think about like how far away from civilization you are. And you're like, damn people. But at the same time, like I do enjoy that hunt. You just have to, there's such different experiences, right? Like if you really want like the Alaska trip, like go fly out and be remote and be isolated. If you want to go on a fun hunt, like you just have to have the right mindset going into it. They're like, this is what it is. Like I'm going on a caribou hunt that's super affordable, and I'm going to get a chance to at a lot of opportunities on a caribou with my bow. But it's not the adventure, and it's just a different adventure. Like, I don't want to say it's not the adventure. It's just a different adventure, and like just different things. Right. So I would do the haul road again, just because there's so many other fly out hunts to do. And it's like spending that much money on a fly out for a caribou seems kind of expensive. Right. I think I'd rather put that money towards a moose hunt and then fly out and do a moose hunt. So I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on it. But I think if you had 3 or 4 dudes and you were wanting to do a rifle, like, it's really, when you really break it down, like a fly out's, manageable or whatever. And if you're like, I want to kind of add this adventure piece to it, then it makes sense to do a fly out caribou hunt. Yeah,
for sure, man. So going back to like, you said podcasts are a big thing in your journey and stuff like that. Do you have any favorites that really kind of sparked your passion there?
Like way back when, or like currently?
Probably more currently, I guess.
That's a good question. there's one I like, there's probably one or two I listen to. I've been like, I go in kicks, right? So I don't even listen to hardly any hunting podcast, mainly because I just do it, right?
Right.
But I'm listening to more entrepreneur podcasts these days. I listen to My First Million quite a bit. I listen to some of the crypto tales, like some into crypto and stuff. So like listen to a lot of the crypto stuff, just trying to keep up with what's new or whatever. But yeah, I don't even hardly listen to any hunting podcasts. Like there'll be a few, like maybe I'll listen to Rogan too every now and then, but that's about it.
Yeah. I saw you posted on your story about that. I haven't listened to that one yet, but I listened to the Peter McCulloch one. That was pretty gnarly.
Yeah. This new one's like, it's crazy, man.
Even more crazy.
Yeah. I think it's more crazy. I think you're like, I don't know. It's like all the pieces seem to be coming together. Like, I don't know about you, but like for a long time I was like, man, something's not right. Like something's weird.
Oh yeah.
And then
from the beginning, I thought it was weird.
And then the McCall comes out and you're like, yeah, okay, this is making sense. And I feel like now like, you're going to see more and more. And I feel like we're right on the tipping point of like everyone being like, okay, something's not right.
Yeah.
Like something's goofy here.
And people are getting fed up too.
Right.
So yeah, and the cool thing about podcasts too is it's like, you talked about being an entrepreneur, and that's one of the kind of it's a blessing and a curse, but and I'm myself just kind of starting off I've been doing the podcast for about a year, but this year I'm actually going full time into the podcast and filmmaking. And
good for you, man.
Yeah. So it's, you have those moments of, this is awesome, I'm going to do this, like nothing can stop me. And you have those moments of like, what am I doing? Like, there's no way I can make this happen. You know what I mean? Right. Like walking that knife edge between faith and fear. But the cool thing about podcasts is
I have bad news. That never gets better.
That's okay. I mean, I think if you're not walking that knife edge, I think you're supposed to be on that knife edge, honestly. Like life should require some degree of faith. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And like, that's, people say that about imposter syndrome. Like you're like, imposter syndrome is a very real thing. And I think we all struggle with it. Like, dude, when I started a podcast, I had no business talking about hunting podcasts. Like I that's how I felt, I'm like, I don't know a thing. I'm like, I'll just interview other people. Right.
Right.
And it took me more than a year to accept the fact that like, you don't have to be the top before you can talk.
Absolutely.
I am ahead of some people and far below others. Like it's no different than we were just talking about Rogan. So Rogan, is he the expert on this thing? No, he's just asking questions, but is he an expert? Is he above other people, say in jujitsu or whatever? Like you don't have to be at the top. And I think we all have like imposter syndrome to be like, I have no business saying my opinion. Right.
Yeah.
And it was like that for me with elk hunting. I literally got into podcasts to figure out more about elk hunting, not to teach people. But what I found is like, there was a ton of people that were like just starting out or coming up that were like, actually, way more than I do. And I can't get any information out of anybody. So like, can you just tell me? And I'm like, well, here's what I know, like, and that's all you can do, man. But like, I don't know that ever goes away.
No, that's good. It's almost like modern art. Like someone like looks and is like, oh, I could do that. But it's like, yeah, but did you?
Right. But did you?
Yeah. And that's the same thing with me too. I mean, and I've been very upfront from the beginning. Like I don't claim to be an expert. I don't claim to be, like a badass hunter. I'm just me. I'm doing this. And I mean, I'm from Virginia, so it's been a learning curve for sure, but it's been awesome, man. And the thing about podcasts and like doing podcasts, whether you're listening or even creating them, it's kind of like you can, they say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with most. So even if you don't, like for me, I can't really put myself around great elk hunters and stuff in Virginia. Like they're really hard to find, but I've like built this whole network of like people and friends and colleagues over the past year of all these guys and gotten to work with some of them, like Dan from Elk Shape. And it's just like, I've kind of stepped into this world through the internet and podcasts,
No, which is great. And that's no different than anything, like whether it's entrepreneurship or hunting or whatever. Is like, that's one of the cool things about internet companies, whatever, is like, you can change the 7 people you're surrounded by X-fold, like instantly, because now you're like, okay, I'm surrounded by this person. Is it completely healthy? No, you should probably have like actual real friends, but at the same time, like, that's what pushes you, motivates you, or like inspires you to kind of just keep working towards it. Right. Because I was that way. Like for a long time, I was from a podunk town in Oregon and thought I never really liked the idea that you had to move to somewhere to be a part of that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in the entrepreneur community, when I was, it's just starting out, everyone's like, oh, you got to move to Silicon Valley, to be in startup land or whatever. You got to surround yourself by it. And I was like, no, I don't think you do. And there is some truth in both, right? Yeah. Like to some degree, you can surround yourself. I made it into the hunting industry without moving to Bozeman. That was kind of serendipitous. And actually we didn't even move here for me. It was kind of my wife. And so it was like, I was still able to be a part of it and surround myself by these people just via the podcast, right? And those relationships. Mm-hmm. Now, if you physically surround yourself by those people too, I think it's like another level, but I think you can do either. I think 100% you can, that's the cool thing about today is like, you can grow an industry around whatever you're into because there's someone like you. And the other thing about that is like, from your perspective to say, okay, there's a million other hunting podcasts. Why would someone listen to me? I've said the same thing about entrepreneurship. Like, I'm working on this entrepreneurship course thing. And for the longest time, I was like, there's so many entrepreneurship people, conversations, courses, all these things. Like, why would anybody talk to me? But then you realize that like there's enough people that would rather hear it from me than someone else, because there's always going to be a subset of people that are like you, right? Yeah. So if I say like I'm entrepreneurship for dumb rednecks, then there's a bunch of dumb rednecks that are like, oh, that guy speaks my language, right. And like he may not resonate with someone from Silicon Valley or from Austin who isn't even talking about the same stuff, right? Yeah. And so like people will resonate with you. Like there's plenty of people from the East Coast who are probably more like you. They'd rather listen to your experiences about hunting than mine being from the left coast. Right. Yeah.
And it's, it's kind of, you can look at it like, oh, I don't live out in wherever, or I'm not in Silicon Valley, or I'm not in Montana or whatever. And you can look at it as a negative thing, or you can like try to flip it into an asset and be like, okay, well, what makes me unique coming from an outsider's perspective? Like 100%. What unique voice can I have that these guys don't have because they grew up with an elk call in their mouth? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
So it's a balance, but you just got to learn to look at things positively and see how you can make it an asset, not a liability.
And I think it's easy to try to become the people who are in front of you. I think it's just, whether it's entrepreneurship or hunting, like business oriented, whatever you want to call it, it's easy to say, I'll use the example here in Bozeman, right? Like, so it's easy for me to look at Randy or Steve and be like, oh, that's what success is. And then try to like move towards that because that seems like the only goal I can see. Mm-hmm. We're really bad at that as humans, is like not being uniquely us. And that's hard because we feel like this imposter syndrome, right? So for you, it's easy to look at people and be like, you just start to migrate towards that because you're like, oh, that's what success is. Like, that's the route I'm supposed to go. Whereas, the reality of the situation is like, you should be and really take pride in like the unique characteristics that are you. Right. And like, so what makes you, and that makes you different. I struggle with that because like, as I got in the industry, it was like, okay, what is success? And I already had my own version of success, but I would look at other people and be like, oh, they're doing this, I should do that. Like, no, wait, back up. Like, I'm not trying to get to where they are. Right. So you have to keep that in check and be like, okay, what do I want? What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And so that's like, I'd say a year ago, it was like, for me, it was like, dude, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a hunter. Like, I don't know which one even has the priority. So I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of creating hunting content. Like, that's not what I want to do, even though that's like, it felt like all the forces were pushing me to go that way. And I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. Like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to like, talk about companies, help people start companies. Like, I want to help, I always say dumb rednecks. I probably, it's not the politically correct term. I was like, I want to help dumb rednecks like me start companies or start businesses and actually, do this thing. Cause like when I started, they said I was supposed to be a farmer, and I was like, no, I'm going to start internet companies. Like, just like the most ass backwards thing. Right. Yeah. But I didn't have any resources or anybody to teach me that. Similar to like the hunting thing, it was just kind of like figure it out. And so now I kind of like have this like, okay, that's who I want to be, is uniquely that person, that me. Right. Yeah. I think everyone needs to find that. I think it's easier said than done. For a lot of people, it's like, you don't really know who you are for a long time. You're just trying to feel all this out. Like, you dabbling in stuff. Right. And so like, it takes a while to really iron that out.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also that tension too, right? I think I heard you on a podcast talking about it with somebody of like for me, you know, I've been working on business plan and stuff like that. And, you know, my mentor that I've been working with on this business plan with, he comes from the traditional, I guess, business world where it's like, they want to see like, okay, this is how I'm going to make my revenue, like in this much time, this amount per every unit,
Right.
whatever. And it's like, I have this sense is like, dude, I don't exactly know how I'm going to get where I need to go, but I just like have faith. I just think if I just like do this and keep grinding, it's going to work out. But like, I don't know. It's a weird tension to like not be able to explain. People are like, so where's your revenue going to come from? And I'm like, I have an idea. I don't know exactly. And things might evolve. I don't know. Does that sound like a scary place or like a normal place to you?
It's 100% normal. I'm laughing because like in my course, so I'm working on this course. We taught it. I taught it to 25 people as like a trial run, and now I'm kind of rewriting, revamping a little bit. But one of my like portions of that is that business plans are bullshit. Like they're BS, right? And so one of my mentors was we struggled. And I told the story of like, I had this idea of building an internet company, and that was completely at odds with everything my mentor who owned the company had built. You know, he'd built multiple companies, made millions and millions, but nothing to do with internet companies. And so when I was like, this is the way I want to, you know, this is what we're doing, this is the future. It was okay until like a point. And then we started like butting heads, and it was like, no, you need to do this. I was like, no, man, like I'm pretty confident in this, like not that confident, but I'm pretty confident. And so this was like, I reached this point with this mentor where he decided, he's like, I don't want this to ruin our relationship. Why don't you buy it? And it was like, okay, now I'm all in. But it was like that point where I don't know if I'd surpassed. In some ways I'd surpassed that mentor, in other ways not, right? But like, it was just a different era. If you built a company in the 80s, like I had a mentor that built a bullet company, and he was kind of partners in this company. And this is a different one, but he was like, no, man, like you got to go to trade shows. You got to do this. I'm like, man, trade shows are dead. Like this is it. You got to be internet. Like and you know, he was all about dealers, getting into Cabela's and those things. And it was like, no, like this is not the route I want to go. And this is the route I want to go. And it was just very different. And sometimes you get to that point, right? And like everyone has their own experiences. You'll get mentors that are like, no, this is how you build a business. No, that's how you built your business.
Right.
And so I say that business plans are bullshit. It's not entirely true. They're this weird thing that you need to impress banks or investors and things like that. Right. And they're okay to have, but they are bullshit because it lines you out in a path that's not correct. Right. Or it sticks you in a rut that you're like, this is where I'm going.
Right.
But people fail to like make adjustments. Right. And I think pivoting is far more important than being able to have this like ideal plan of, you know, your rev streams for the next 5 years. Right. Like there's a fine balance between being able to pivot and being able to like stick the path. Right. And this, you know, it's like, where do you hold them and fold them? Right. Take it to a hunting analogy. Like we're in a spot, we hiked in 5 miles, like, do we bail on this spot or we keep grinding it out? Right. And some guys will stick there and grind it out and never see a damn thing for 5 days because they're pot committed to that spot. They put all this effort into doing this thing. And, you know, there's some good in like sticking it out and stick-to-itiveness. Right. But at the end of the day, you can't be bouncing around all over. Right. So let's take the same analogy. And like, we go to and like, okay, we're going to hunt unit 30 and I'm just making this up, but unit 30 in Colorado. You and I go there and we're just like this huge unit. We're like, well, let's go over here. Oh, no, there's nothing there. Let's bounce over here. Let's bounce over here. And like, you never really look at one spot well enough to know whether there was good bucks in there or not. And then like you went to the first spot and maybe you spent an afternoon there and you didn't see anything. Well, now you have to go back to that spot to check it again to be like, okay, was there deer in there or did we just get carried away and bounce around? So now you're just doing, you know, running circles on yourself. Business is no different, man. It's like, you have to like keep testing new things and trying new things until you're fairly confident that that's not the thing, and then pivot and then keep going to the next thing, because the chances that you're going to line out the perfect business and then keep to it for the next 2 years is asinine, man. It's like the industry or the trends aren't even going to stay the same for that long. And so to say like, oh, this is our model, I think it's good to have like a rough estimate. And that's why I always say, do battle plans, not business plans. And so,
I like that.
You know, like when you go into a hunt, you're going to say, okay, we're going to try here, and then we're going to move to here, and then we're going to move to here. Those are battle plans. Like that's not a full hunt plan, right? But if you said, you're going into a caribou hunt and you're going to go to Alaska, you're like, okay, we're only going to hunt this one spot and we're going to stick that whether we kill or not. Like that's not really, you don't have all the data. You don't have all the information to make that decision from Virginia when you end up in Alaska or Colorado or wherever you're going to go. Right. So you get there, you're going to execute your first plan. You're like, okay, we did this. What intel do we have now? And how do we adjust? Right. So you go on a hunt, and you're like, man, we're just not seeing anything, but we saw some caribou over here. So like, let's hike into this spot and see what we find. So that's battle plan 2, right? So we pivoted and we made another battle plan. Your business is no different, man. Like you could take it and say, okay, here's my plan. And here's the objectives we have for the next 6 months. And I usually say like 90 days, do a quarter, excuse me. And be like, okay, well, here's our plan. And we need to hit this goal because we need to get money quick, right? So like, what's the thing that we can do to get money coming in and create that revenue? So then we can pivot and go to the next thing. Because the reality is like in 9 months from now, you may see doors that you couldn't see from the very beginning, right? Yeah. It's the 100%. Same with a hunt. Like it's going to open up doors. The more you figure out, the more you're like opening that door, what's next, right? And so for business, it's no different. Like, okay, here's the next 90 days, maybe the next 6 months. And then like everything after that gets a little more blurry. Yeah. And it's like, okay, but what doors are going to open up in the next 6 months that you're like, okay, this is it. And you can't bounce around too much. And it's that fine line of like, okay, did we really hunt this spot? Do we know what's here, what's not here? Should we move on to the next one? And you'll find that balance as you grow and continue.
No, I'm really glad you said that because so this person I'm working with on the plan, like they're very meticulous. They also made millions, in a completely different like arena. And so they're very knowledgeable, but it stresses me out because like, if I look back at this past year, I could have never guessed the opportunities that opened up. I could have never planned for any of them. Like, right. So like to sit here and try to plan 2 years out when I have no idea, it's like, I know that like, if I just do this, I'm good at this. If I do this and this and this, other doors are going to open that I can't see yet, like you just said. And so that's good to hear, man, because it stresses me out.
I mean, I wouldn't worry about it. Like those are all like, there's such like business plans are so made up. Like it's like a joke. You're like, even you go to the bank and say like, we're going to get a loan, say you and I are starting a business, right? And we got to go get $100,000 from the bank. So we like put together this business plan. There's such made up numbers that we don't have a clue, man. Like it's just like, okay, they're good rough estimates. But at the end of the day, like you said, I don't want to say they're completely BS because there is some truth to like having a map, knowing where you're going, what the end goal is. I'm really big believer in like starting with the end in mind. Like if you came to me and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this business, my first question would be like, okay, what's the end goal? Like what's our exit? Is it an exit? Are we handing it down to our kids? Or are we trying to grow this giant monopoly? Like those are important aspects of it. But to say like, here's our business plan can oftentimes give people like blinders and they like tend to go down like, this is our business plan. And so I think it's just important to have shorter term battle plans and have an end goal in mind. So that's good. I don't think like it's throwing it out the window and saying like, throw all care to the wind and like, we're just going to start out and see where we end up, wing it. Right. But in some ways you're like, it's a slightly like controlled wing it.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like how you relate it to hunting too. It's so perfect. Cause you go in there with a loose plan and like kind of backups and a few options, but you can't hold on to any one thing too tightly. I mean, we saw that on my Alaska trip. We went to one area, sign everywhere, no animals, 3 days, packed up and hit another spot. And we, saw animals and almost tagged out, but anyway, long story, but
the same is true for guys that, go on a hunt and don't put the work in. Like, they'll go and be like, oh, I'll just figure it out. But then they kind of run out of options and, and whatnot. So it's good. I don't want to say like, hey, just throw caution in the wind and wing it. Because when I go into a hunt, I'll have 6, 7, 8, 10, whatever plans. I have thought through contingency after contingency.
Yeah.
But I've also done enough of these like out of state hunts or adventure hunts to know that like no plan survives first contact. Like it's almost guaranteed that my first plan is going to fail. And it's like, okay, now what? Like, okay, let's go to this. But so much of my plans get altered by data on the ground. And like, that's just the way it is. Like I could have 10 plans. I promise you, first contact's going to tell me more and I'll be able to like alter those plans as I go, but at least I have them, I have backups before the failure. And like, you have to, just keep working through each scenario and each thing with the data that you get. Business is the same. And that's what, like, I'm really big on, like, to me, entrepreneurship and hunting are like, they go hand in hand because they're so similar to me. And like they're kind of my two passions, but like, it's easy for me to relate from one to the other. And there's so many like crossovers for me.
Yeah. Any other like, really good things that like areas where hunting has made you a better entrepreneur or like has, like taught you something about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I used to say like I went to school to be a firefighter, and then I became a firefighter via entrepreneurship because like you learn to put out fires. That's like your job. My job now is literally just putting out fires. Trying to think of something off the top of my head for hunting. I think the one thing for me that correlates the most between hunting and entrepreneurship is like, hunting allows me as an entrepreneur, like it's hard to take breaks, it's hard to take time off. It's hard to take your brain off of all of the like stress and the firefighting and thinking. But like hunting is this thing that gives me purpose and forces me to slow down and to think. And like, it's almost like my reset. People say like fishing is my yoga, like hunting's definitely my yoga. But at the same time, it forces me to do the thinking, right? It forces me away from being able to firefight to being like, okay, but let's think big picture. So there's a lot of things that I think tie well together is like being gone for me. Like there's always been like a no work September. And it's like, I became an entrepreneur. So I didn't have to work in September. Like I'm happy to work 68 hours a week, except for that 1 month. Like that's my escape time. And I think those, to me, like they just mesh so well together because like hunting forces me to be a better entrepreneur. So I can leave. It forces me to do the right things. Right.
Yeah.
But hunting forces me to take a break, slow down, and get my mind right, keep my priorities within the company. Right. And so like, it's easy when you're a firefighter in your company to be like, oh shit, gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this. And like all these things we gotta do and like worrying about stuff. But when you're forced to take, some time off, whether it's 10 days or a month, like forcing yourself to take 10 days is like, sometimes you get a lot of perspective that way. And so whether one makes me better at the other, probably, but more so, I think that to me, they're just very like, they're congruent.
Yeah. Yeah. So even though business plans are BS, I feel like you are a goal, kind of a long-term goal kind of guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I would say
not,
so.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily long-term, but since it is kind of early January 2022 and people are kind of evaluating their goals and stuff like that, like, do you have, and I've never been good at goal setting. Like I kind of live in the moment and, I do it to some degree, but I could be better. But do you have any kind of like process that you go through like for setting goals or, and then also like what, if you'd like to, I'd love to hear some of your goals for 2022.
Yeah. So I'm big on like dreamlining, which I differentiate from goal setting, and I'll explain. So dreamlining is like lining out what your future self looks like. I'm very big on like looking farther down the road than most people. So we use long-term goals. Like I don't really have long-term goals. I have long-term dreamlines, which is like, to say that in 5 years, where would I be? Right. And so like I sit down and I say, well, in 5 years, just roughly speaking, it's like, okay, I want to be going on X amount of hunts per year. I want to, have X, Y, Z as far as properties. So for me, it's like, okay, I want to have 3 Airbnb cabin type things. I want to have my dream place, which is, I've always said is like 100 acres of river bottom in Montana. That is, you want to talk about point creep? that one's outpacing me, but faster than I can be an entrepreneur. But like having these things, right? So like I envision my life of what it'll look like down the road. Yeah. And those are usually more extreme than am comfortable. And so like, I even struggle saying it still. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to have 100 acres of river bottom and I'm going to have 3 Airbnb cabins that I can go to. And I'm going to be hunting, say 50 days a year. Right. Like those are like, oh man, that seems audacious to say. Mm-hmm. But I think when you start envisioning yourself in those shoes, like you're like, okay, then how do we get there? So like, what's the 1 year plan to get to that 5-year goal? And then what's the quarterly? So for me, I'm big on, like I said, battle plans. Even within my company, it's like we were working on this today. Like what's our, 90-day like execution goals, right? How do we make 90-day goals to get to our 1 year, which is going to get us to our 5-year. So that's kind of how I lay it out, is like, here's where I want to be in 5 years. What do I have to have in 1 year to get there? And then what do I have to do this quarter? And then from there, it's like, okay, you can easily break down like your quarter and be like, okay, we need to be here this month and get it done. And that's kind of how I operate. I know some people are like big on just setting goals and reaching goals or annual goals or whatever. For me, it's more like, where do I want to be? And then how do I do that? The other thing I like to do is like, say your future self, where's your target monthly income? So, like, what does that need to be? And this has a lot to do when you think about like, from your perspective, where you're at, you're thinking about, okay, what are my business plans? What are my rev streams? Like, what are these things? You have to think about like, what is your dream life? And then what is your target monthly income? So like, what's your end goal? Like, to me, it's like, I don't need to make millions and millions of dollars. I really don't. Like, I don't really care about money. It's more, I would rather have, say, $10,000 or $15,000 a month in recurring revenue. So I'd rather have money coming in every single month that isn't tied to me or mostly isn't tied to me in a lot of ways. And so it's like, that's what I really want. So do I want to like build the empire or whatever, and then sell my company for $50 million, whatever it is? No, that doesn't really sound that interesting to me. Yeah. So it's not a priority. Whereas like, how do I get to $10,000 a month in recurring revenue? And if I can get there, then it's not that hard to get to 15. Right. And so then it becomes like, okay, how do I get $5,000 in recurring revenue? And so as you think about it, like you personally, is like, okay, where do I want to be? Like, what's my dream line? Like, what's my dream life look like? Do I driving, fancy cars, or is it just the fact that I get to go hunting all the time? I'm much bigger on, I would rather get time than any material thing. Yeah. That's not to say I don't want, like, say a nice property or something. Like that's a dream of mine. So I do need money for that, but I also prioritize time first. For sure. Because for me, it's like, it's all about, I want to be able to go do the things I want, go on the hunts I want. Yeah. And like a big piece of that for me, that's tough, is like, I don't want to film. I don't want to create content. It's a slippery slope for me, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So, I could look at someone like Randy who goes, let's say 15 hunts a year, but like there's a cost to his 15 hunts a year, and like there's a whole bunch of deliverables, right? Mm-hmm. And like for me, it's like, how do I get to 15 hunts a year? And I'll go on them whether I want to or not, and I don't have to do anything to get them. So like that's just a different variation. And there's people that are like, man, I just love creating content. Like that's what they want to do. Like, it's just not me. And so like, you just have to be fairly honest with yourself, is like, what's your dream life look like? Because it's in that scenario, not to pick on Randy. He's very, very successful, but if you aren't careful about what your end goal looks like, you can take paths that get the wrong end goal. Right. So for example, you could say like, man, I just want to go hunting all the time. And it's easy to like, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, the first step is like, I got to create a YouTube channel and start getting sponsors and all that thing. But the divergent between that and going on 15 hunts a year without content gets farther, the farther down that path you go, if that makes sense. So you're not really getting time. You're still trading time for money in that aspect. And so I try to get away from things that are trading time for money. So it may take me longer to go the route that I'm going and get to like, how do I get to 15 hunts? I don't know, 15 is a lot, but like, let's say 50 days a year without having to do content. It may take me longer to go that route without just going and getting sponsors and doing content and growing a YouTube channel. Like that may be the quicker route, but for me, it's more important to get there a certain way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I heard somebody say once, the most dangerous thing that you can do is be really good at the wrong thing.
That's very true.
Um,
And that's easy because sometimes like you have to ask yourself, am I going down the right path? And like if you don't know where you want to be, how do you know if you're on the right path or the wrong path?
for sure. Gotta have a target.
Yeah, you gotta have a target. And I think it's 100% true. Is like oftentimes it's easier and quicker to go down the wrong path. Like generally speaking, like it's always easier to be like, oh, if I just do this, that, we're on the right path. And then the farther down that path you get, the harder it gets to go back.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, just generally, I think people that are listening that are really interested in this stuff in entrepreneurship, I definitely recommend you check out Cody's, e-course, or it is an e-course, right? You guys are offering it as an e-course.
Yeah, it's going to be launching here in the next, say 10. I'm just wrapping up filming and stuff.
Sure.
So, so the next 10 days or so.
Nice. Well, check that out. But just like, I heard you say one time something that I thought was really neat about people cheat their future selves out of what they want, basically on fear, because of fear, and they don't, or letting, perfect get in the way of good, like you talked about before about, people, instead of just launching out, they're like, oh, it's got to be perfect, and then they never do anything. But I don't know, what would be like your biggest kind of, if you had to give, like, boil it down to like one piece of advice for guys out there who might have a dream? It could be hunting related, or it could be, I don't know, starting a plumbing business. Doesn't really matter. But like for guys that have that entrepreneurial dream, what's kind of like your biggest piece of advice you just drop out there in general?
There's a saying that entrepreneurs build the plane on the way down, in that like you're essentially on a crashing plane and you're trying to figure out how to build it on the way down. That's not the best advice. Although it's fairly accurate, because it does feel like you're falling out of the sky most of the time. I would say, like, think of entrepreneurship as setting sail, not shooting a cannonball. So oftentimes we look at it as like we have to aim this cannonball perfectly to hit our target. Whereas the reality is it's more like we're steering a ship along the way. You have to set sail to get anywhere, and you can kind of course correct. That's entrepreneurship. Too many people put it on a pedestal and have so much fear around like hitting the target perfectly the right time. Like, trust me, no one who has started a business hit it right the first time. And it's about kind of pivoting and just changing your core direction as you go and trying to figure it out. Right. Like, but it's, as much as I want to say, like, just start, like, there are a lot of things I wish I could go back and say, like, hey, here's some direction that you should start at. Because as much as steering the ship is great and is a great analogy, like if you set sail the absolute wrong direction, it can take you a really long damn time to get there. So like there's a balance between, you have to start to get anywhere. You have to take swings to hit home runs, and that's the honest truth. 100%. But if you're standing on first base trying to hit a home run, like, it's really hard to do because the pitcher's throwing it the wrong way. And so like there's a balance there. But that's my advice, is like, don't fear it. Don't feel like you have to have the perfect plan. Don't feel like you have to have an audience. Even I think a lot of people are like, oh, I gotta have an audience before I can build a business. I just don't think that's necessarily true. And I would say it's easier today to start a business than at any other time in history.
Nice. You got any cool hunts planned yet for this year?
The Kodiak one is probably my always have like, so for me, when I think about hunts, it's like, I want, something adventurous, something solo. I want to have a hunt with some really good buddies, or family or something along those lines. So I'm like always trying to get like little pieces of everything. Because there was like eras where I would be like only solo hunt, and then like an entire year where I'd only hunt with my buddies and missed like the solo part of it. And so I try to have a little bit of everything. So I actually got a call, and it's always hard, like trying to plan your hunts with buddies. Cause like I got a call last night and we were trying to do this like Wyoming antelope hunt. And my buddy's like, hey, my wife just changed our Hawaii trip. And this, I'm like, are you kidding me? So like,
I did that hunt this year. It's super fun.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's a cool hunt. And so we always like, there's a core group of buddies that we always try to do a hunt. We actually didn't do one last year. So I'm really going to be pissed if it doesn't work out. So we're trying to line that out. I think that's probably one of the ones I'm more excited about between that and Kodiak. And then elk season. I'm always like trying to scheme for elk season, make sure I get a good tag. And that's usually cool, like elk season's my solo, like grind it out. Like that's the one I want to just, be me.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's funny. I did Kodiak and Wyoming antelope last year. That's kind of what you got coming up. That's awesome.
You got an elk hunt plan this year?
Yes. Hold on one second. I'll show you something.
Oh yeah.
So this is my Kodiak buck.
Heck yeah, man.
And this is my Wyoming antelope.
Yeah, hell yeah. That's a good antelope.
Yeah, man. Got a little broken cutter.
Heavy.
He is. And it was a 1-point unit.
Yeah. Dude, that's the thing. People like get wrapped around the axle about how many points I got in Wyoming. Wyoming points by you access. That's it. But you could shoot an antelope on 0-point unit. You could shoot a stud antelope on a 0-point unit on like a one section of, state of BLM or something.
Special draw is a good option too. That's what we did.
Yeah.
But that's cool, man. Are you a spring bear guy?
Love spring bear. Yeah.
Nice.
That's another one I'm trying to plan out right now. So
me too. I've never done it. And so I'm trying to find a partner for that, but I'm going to do that hopefully in your state this year. And you asked about elk hunt. So I have I have an elk tag in Idaho in October. So me and a couple guys are actually going to fly in to the church. Yeah, Frank Church, and I got a mule deer and an elk tag. So it's not during the rut, but it's going to be sweet. Yeah. We're mainly mule deer hunting, honestly.
Right.
But I had the cash, so I was like, I don't want to accidentally see an elk and not have a tag.
Yeah, there's a guaranteed way to see lots of elk, and that's not by a tag.
I knew that would happen. So, and now that I have one, I won't see any, so we're good.
Right. I did that. We we went to Idaho on my buddy hunt. We were like, and it started out as a mule deer hunt. This is how it always works. Which I'm usually the elk guy, and so I guess it's only fair that a few years ago this was before I moved to Montana. We did a mule deer hunt, and I had an elk tag. And as soon as like those guys killed deer, I was like, we're going elk hunting. And so maybe this is like, I had it coming, but I was like, let's go on a backcountry mule deer hunt. And so we're like planning this mule deer hunt. And they're like, wait, you can just buy elk tags? Like, we're going elk hunting. I was like, damn it. My deer hunt just turned into a elk hunt. And so of course we shoot, I didn't buy the tag because I had drawn a late season muzzleloader. And sure enough, like, I'm mule deer hunting, and there's like a 310 bull just laying out in the middle of this wide open. And like for 2 days, like I watched this as I was hunting deer up there, and I was like, yeah, of course, like I don't have an elk tag, so that makes sense.
That's the way it always goes down. But yeah, I don't have any plans for September right now. Still got a lot to learn, honestly, about elk hunting. So I went this year. I went and filmed for Dan Staten in New Mexico, and so I might go meet up with him again for like a couple days and do some photography, and then, but I don't know. I still haven't figured that out. I got a lot of like plans, but nothing's, only a few have really solidified. So
right.
We'll see how it works out. Analogous to my life in general right now.
We're just making it up as we go.
Yeah, but it's good, man. Always an adventure. So anyway, man, tell folks where they can find you if they want to hear more about, what you got going.
Yeah. My podcast is The Rich Outdoors. We talk entrepreneurship, we talk hunting, we talk all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty wide ranging. But that's probably the best way to find me. And if social, same, Rich Outdoors.
Yeah. You're not going to be at Western Hunt Expo, are you?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know if I'm going to do any shows.
Yeah. Weird.
So we'll see. Are you going to any?
I'm going to go to the Hunt Expo. So I'm leaving this Sunday for Arizona to meet up with some dudes down there for coos and mule deer. And most of the shows are happening while I'm there, but the Western Hunting Expo is the only one that's not. So I'm going to hit that one up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, shows were really good. I think like when you're just starting out, like you could meet a lot of people face to face. And
that's the main reason I'm going, just kind of network and stuff.
Right. Yeah. I think it's good. I think it's really good.
So anyway, man, appreciate your time. It's been really, really fun chatting with you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you, man.